our emotions are so important. Emotions are, they're indicators, not dictators. Figure out why. Why are you angry? Okay, what made you angry? Sometimes it's like one little thing that causes this major explosion. Wow, you have the opportunity in front of you to really dive into what's going on inside of you. Why?
Welcome to the Relate Church podcast.
This is called Love and War for a good reason, because it is really the spectrum on communication. If we're ever going to see the challenge of loving one another well and doing relationships well, it is going to be manifest the most in how we communicate. We are firm believers that anything can be resolved through healthy communication. Anything. I mean, world peace will come if there is healthy understanding and communication. In marriages, in families, in business, in church life, in all that we do, when there is healthy communication and a heart to want to communicate, I think anything can be solved and resolved. So we're going to talk about this today when it comes to love and war. I would say that for us, this has been the biggest challenge and the biggest victory.
It continues to be the biggest challenge.
As evidenced right now. Okay, so
when we get home.
You know what happens? I'm just going to tell you something that you might need to know. If you laugh at John and you just think he's funny, he will just keep making up stories. And he will just keep entertaining you. And that is why we have to get serious right now. But so communication is the most accurate pulse. How are we doing on your relationship? And so the question is always, like I think with Wi-Fi, getting a signal on Wi-Fi. The question is it strong or is it weak? And if it's weak, where are the areas that we need to improve in? And where are the areas that we are just actually doing really well in? I know a lot of people like us who have had struggles over the years with communicating. We've done the work. Today we have hard conversations, but the beautiful thing is they're not hard to have anymore, not scary to have anymore. Why? Because we've learned the art of how to resolve conflict, how to get on the same page, how to strengthen what is weak so that we can go forward.
So what is communication?
Communication is essentially how you convey and how you carry a message. And there have been many, many studies done on how much of communication is actually verbal. So much of communication is nonverbal. The message that we're carrying in our stance, in our reflection and how we look at someone, how we show approval or disgust. So much of it is like we're not paying attention. And so the message is, what I'm saying to you doesn't matter right now. And so a lot of it is nonverbal, but so much of it is essential that we would have verbal communication as well. So communication is not just information. Information is just putting out information. I think about Siri. You can ask Siri on your phone anything. And you might get information, but that doesn't mean you have a connection to Siri. You might get some important info, and we all need that, but communication is actually heart to heart. It requires what I would define as an emotional connection, that you are hearing me. What I'm saying matters, and what you're saying matters to me. And so last week, we brought up some issues, and if you weren't here last week, I'd encourage you to just go through that message, because it talks about just some basic things that we need in our relationships to improve in the health of our relationship. We talked about every healthy relationship starts with a healthy you. How are you doing? How is your heart? If we're in a place of not feeling healthy and strong, it will be demonstrated in every relationship. So every great relationship will start with a great or healthy you. Not a perfect you. None of us are there, but a healthy or wanting to become healthier you. Secondly, it requires trust, and we're going to bring that up again in what we're talking about. Trust is a sense of safety in our relationship, and that's so important in communication. Also, honesty and vulnerability. We talked about that last week, and if that's not in communication, we're not going to have heart to heart. It is essential. And the last thing that I want to bring up is that we talked about last week is just respect. A kindness and a respect and a value that says, you matter to me. And we may have issues, we may have stuff going on, but you are more important to me than this underlying issue. So if those things are there, now we can build healthy, trusted communication. Without those present, we are building on a faulty foundation. And so you can essentially change your life and change your world with the words you speak.
The Bible tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. There is no more powerful thing that we have, no more powerful ability we have than the words that we speak. And, lately I just noticed in my life so many times I'm in the place where I'm wanting to get something. And I think, often Helen's asked, so what do you think about me? Like, what would be the number one thing you say about me? And it's simple. She's generous. She's the most generous person I know on the planet. But I think you can put every person into one of two categories, giver or taker. And if you're a giver, there's lots of things you can give, but the most powerful thing you can give is words. And if we knew that, if we understood that, we'd go into our conversations with a different stance, a different outlook. And I think that's so important. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. So let's speak life. And when we speak life, it doesn't always come out like just what you want to hear. It's actually what you need to hear. Over the years, I've understood, as far as preaching goes, there's a lot of preachers that would like to stand up and tell you what they know. And actually, I don't want to tell you what you know. I want to tell you what you need to know, or what you want to know, what you want to hear. It's not what I want to say, it's what you need to hear. That's where communication starts. It doesn't start with me giving something. It starts with you receiving something, and I want to be the giver. And so everybody's either a giver or a taker. And when it comes to offering time, you can figure out what you are. Are you a giver or a taker? But when it comes to communication, we often get all mixed up and think it's all about the issues. No, it starts with your heart, a heart that wants to give. So life and death are in the power of the tongue. We've already, as we've talked about, our messages on Sermon on the Mount. Oh, wow, Jesus is just brilliant. So many things he taught. And that most gorgeous sermon ever written, Sermon on the Mount. And a lot of it comes back to conversation. He said in Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Not blessed are the peacekeepers. Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, if you're a peacemaker, means that there's no peace. There's something went wrong, and you need to change it. You need to fix that. And if you look at it in the Message, I like the way Eugene Peterson writes it out. He says, you're blessed when you can show people how to cooperate instead of compete or fight. That's when you discover who you really are in your place in God's family. Who you really are is to be the image of God. God is love. Love gives. So let's be giving words that bring peace, that make peace. And that's what we'll talk about today. And I guarantee you, it's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. It's not easy. We've already heard, as Chris referred to the news of, a potential assassination again. And the world's full of hate and full of just the opposite. Why? Because there is an enemy, and he has come to kill, steal, and destroy. And your words can be words used by either God or by the opposite. So let's just choose before we ever open our mouth to let our words really be generous in every way.
we're going to share out of James chapter 1, but I feel like just as we go here, there's something that I just want to highlight, and this is a good question for every one of us to ask ourselves. When you talk about communication, as a human being, that's not optional. We have to become good at communicating. It is essential to have the peace that our heart longs for and for what we can have. And so often we think, if we took John and I, we would think, I talk too much and he talked too little. And so it could be easy to say, well, you don't like to communicate, or I like to communicate. I just thought I was a good communicator because I talked a lot, but that was not true. Just because it's a lot of words does not make you a good communicator. Just because you don't share a lot of words does not make you a poor communicator, because communication is not the volume of words, it's the heart of the words. So if some of you are in the room and think, I'm a great communicator, I talk all the time, that may not be true. Or if you think, I don't have anything to say, and I don't like to talk. Well, you don't get to not talk. There has to be a coming together of hearts. And so wherever you find yourself on the spectrum of verbiage, if you will, put that aside and just say, am I willing to have the relationships my heart longs for, and am I willing to open up and to actually share this part of my life? It may be extraordinarily uncomfortable for you, but let's just push through the hard places to be what the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers.
So the key verse is James 1:19, which I'm sure most of you have heard it before, and I've taught it so many times, but we're always learning. This is so important. James 1:19 says, take this to heart. Be quick to hear, slow, or listen actually, not just hear. You know there's a difference between hearing and listening? Hearing happens whether you want it or not. Listening actually requires attention. Be quick to hear or listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. So, number one, quick to listen. Paul Tillich said this, and I think it's great. He says, the first duty of love is to listen.
Say that again.
The first duty of love is to listen. Say it again. The first duty of love is to listen. You try it once.
The first duty of love is to listen.
But listening actually starts with a purpose. And you listen to understand. And there's a lot of problems in our hearing. We need to actually refine our hearing to listening. Listening to understand is not listening to judge. It's not listening to be right. It's not even listening to evaluate this person. It's just listening to observe, to understand. The problem most of us have, and I'm one of us, is that we have a past. And our past typically shows up in our present. And it shows up as a filter. So everything we've gone through, all the stuff that's happened to us, causes us to listen in a certain way. Like if you've been abused in the past, and every time you've opened your mouth, you've been shut down and called stupid, you listen differently. You listen thinking anyone that's talking to you is attacking you. Anyone that's saying anything to you is coming against you. And first thing we need to do is let go of the past. And we need to simply listen. You know the best way to be heard is to listen. A lot of people, I don't want to listen to you until you listen to me. No, it doesn't work that way. If you listen, it comes back to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over. And listening actually is for the purpose to understand. So don't think you know. How can you listen to understand if you already got it all figured out? But isn't that how often we do? We listen and we tell everybody, I want to understand you, but we've already got you pigeonholed. This is who you are, this is how you are. Now, last week we talked about trust. And if someone has broken trust with you, you need to build it back. And so you're saying to me, I can listen to you without any past track record? Well, you listen to me for the moment, But then when it comes to trust, you add it together with what you've heard. Track record is so important. So this doesn't apply to now I just have to trust you. No, now I want you to listen to me. Okay, we want to communicate. And I don't know. It's not easy. I'll just say that. It's not easy for every single one of us. I think the most important thing is before you enter a conversation, get your heart right. Make sure that you're not prejudging. Make sure that you actually are ready to listen.
You know, as you were talking, I've never thought of this before. I guess maybe in other contexts, but just as you were talking, I was thinking, we should listen to ourselves and the words we're speaking. That if right away our defenses show up or our hurt shows up, it comes from the healthy you. So maybe the very first person we should be listening to is what is coming out of, our early days, we shared this many times in last week as well. We started out in a very painful beginning in our marriage. Our first 4 years of marriage was a lot of destroying a love that we had. We started out in love. But that wall got bigger and bigger, and we kept wounding each other over and over again until we decided we want to heal. We actually want to stay married. And in order to do that, the area that we needed the most work in is our communication. And so we took this scripture very, very literally and stopped talking until we were able to say words that brought life, not death. Because I attacked, and John just left, he didn't talk and I attacked. That was how we started. And I realized if I kept doing that, or if he kept doing that, we would not still be married. We would not have, and so no one has had to work on this harder than us over the years. But I found myself going, Helen, is that necessary? Are you going to say that in that spirit? Or Helen, can you just think about that before you say anything? And so there was a lot of disciplining my own heart and my mouth, reining it in. But that was more educational for me than it was for anybody else. But the good news is we took baby steps. Did we always get it right? No. So if you have broken communication today and you haven't been good at listening to what you're saying or what someone else is, we can start again. But it's going to take two people wanting to have good communication. Peace can't happen unless there's two willing participants. So that's where communication starts.
So if your words are the most generous thing you can give, the opposite is taking. Okay, giving or taking. The thing is, in order for us to give, we had to stop taking. In order for us to start speaking generous, we had to stop speaking the opposite. And I think for a lot of relationships, if you found yourself stuck in always attacking each other, what you need to do is shut up. Stop talking. And make a decision like we did. We actually made a decision. We are not going to speak until we actually have something positive to speak. But the thing about when you do speak generous words, it multiplies. Man, it changes everything. And then the next time it's easier. And then it's easier. And then it becomes a habit. So important. But this is the thing that I think we need to learn is the words that we speak come from a heart. And if you want to communicate, you need to listen to the heart, not just the words. So listen to the heart behind the words. Okay, someone's really mad at you. Why? Maybe they've been hurt because hurt people. Maybe you've hurt them. Listen to the pain behind the words. Listen to the longing. Helen said this many times. Behind every complaint is a longing. If someone's always complaining, stop listening to the words and getting mad at them and trying to change what they're saying. Listen to the longing. And if you can help them understand why they're saying what they're saying, man, that's a great first step toward communicating. But it all starts with be quick to listen.
Can I bring this quote up? John Gottman said this: "Human nature dictates that it is virtually impossible to accept advice from someone unless you feel that person understands you." It's a powerful statement, and when I read that, I thought it's so true. And so, just a little example, I won't go into the whole story, but early in our marriage, I used to say to John all the time, just with complaining, "You never say you love me. You never say you love me. You never, you never, you never." It wasn't true. It was rare that you said it because I was used to hearing it in my home every day. So I was used to hearing that. John grew up in a very different type of home. So he's looking at me like, "What is your problem?"
Now she's hearing it all the time.
Yeah,
Not strictly from me, but from Jack.
Well, all kinds of people. But you have definitely, you said to me one day, rather than like, "You're always complaining about I don't love you. How often do you need to hear it?" So what he did was listen to what the need was. And so when I actually thought about how often would I like to hear it from you, rather than complain about never hearing it, there was a longing to hear it more. And so you said, "What is it that you need from me?" And then when I said it, you did that. You did the work. But then we came to an agreement rather than fighting each other about something that was misunderstood. Because did we love each other? Yes. But my need to hear it was just a lot more than he thought I should need. But that's because of, again, the home we grew up in. It doesn't make one home right and one home wrong. It's just different. So understanding was building a bridge into one another's hearts, which was understanding. So one of the questions...
So here's a really good question. How easy are you to talk to? Rate yourself. 1 to 10. How easy are you to talk to?
I think rate yourself, but more importantly, ask someone who's really close to you. I've had to ask you, how easy it is it for you to come to me and talk to me about something that's hard to talk about? And he said, when he said, "Well, it's not that easy." Well, how can we fix that? I don't think we should just ask ourselves, but we should ask others who know us well.
So the second thing is, first is quick to listen. Second is slow to speak. It doesn't mean don't speak. It means just actually be slow. Think about what you're going to say before you say it. Think about your words before you blurt it.
I think this is the hardest work of communication. To not just be a reactor, but to be a responder. And I think that is, for me, was the biggest discipline, was not be Mount St. Helens and just blow up when my feelings got hurt, because that's what I did. I erupted. Well, that makes me harder and harder to communicate with, and I had to learn how to have a gentle response. This scripture is so powerful. In Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1, it says, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And so the reality is that the course of conflict is not necessarily determined by the person who initiates it, but how we respond to it. And so this is where, again, it doesn't say don't speak, but it teaches us how to speak and to respond slowly. And I mean, even physiologically, that when you're angry about something and you respond in that anger, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, but physiologically, if we are just, you know how it says to count to 10 before you respond? That's actually a very good principle. Maybe count to 100 or more. But to actually don't just blurt out.
You actually have to wait until the blood in your head gets back to where it's supposed to be.
You know when someone gets, just from a physiological point of view, this is good, Dr. Burns, but when your face gets really red when you're angry, what is that?
It's blood. Where does it come from? Your brain. So when you get angry, the fright and flight response actually pumps up your muscles, and you get red in the face, your temperature goes up, all of that, but your thinking or your ability to reason goes down, okay? You drain your brain. So when someone's really mad at you, there's no sense saying, just listen to me. No, he can't hear. Just think for a moment. No, he can't think. Just walk away, count to whatever, 100, and then come back, and actually you can begin to think. So that's why it's never good to lash out when you're in that moment of anger, okay? Things do make you angry. But when that happens, you need to actually take time to walk away.
So our rule is, and I'd recommend this for everybody, is choose the timing. When there is an initial like, wow, that made me mad, then, I mean, you can't do this 1,000% right every time, but you should have a plan. Get better at ruling in, like the Bible, the Proverbs is so full of wisdom for you. I could just list so many of them. But the person who can rule their heart or their mind or their tongue is in control. That's the person who actually is the stronger one in the relationship or in that. So timing is crucial. So sometimes I know with whether it's John or whoever, there is something we need to talk about. This is important. But timing is everything. If you have that, so we have learned, we use our example because we've had the most practice with each other. But I need to talk to you about something. Is this a good time? And so that gives him, what I'm doing is choosing kindness, choosing civility, choosing honoring your frame of mind. So I don't just attack you with a problem. I say, I need to talk to you about something. Is this a good time? And if he says, no, this isn't, then my next response would be, when would it be a good time to talk about this? Which gives him time to kind of prepare rather than just say, never. But we're actually going to talk about it and talk about it in a way that is honoring. And we also have a rule that if we're going to talk about something, you don't just complain about what is. We've thought about and prayed about, what do I want out of this conversation? That is, I want you to understand where I'm coming from. So I've spent time, which is why it's good to not just attack the situation. Sure, you're mad about it, and we're going to go there. But think about, what is it you want? Again, going back to I would like you to say, I love you, more consistently. Okay. So say what you need, and then I didn't attack. And I have 15 other things I'm mad at you about. It's like one thing that we're going to work with rather than attack with everything. I mean, it just used to be, we're not going to make it. We're going to get divorced. I can't stand you. That was my response early days, and that was not helpful. But when we actually started to work on it, and we both took responsibility for what one another needed, now we could do it. But we had to do it in a place slow to speak, not just reacting. Another beautiful scripture. I love the Proverbs. I think nowhere have we learned more wisdom on how to communicate than from Proverbs. And Proverbs 15:23 says this in the Message translation: congenial conversation, what a pleasure. The right word at the right time, beautiful. I feel like that needs to be said in Italian. Bellissima, or whatever. Magnificent, whatever. I just, beautiful. Like the best.
Is that right?
How would you say that, Joe?
Rocco, Joe.
Or,
is that right?
Bellissimo.
But you got to use your hands.
Yeah.
The way you can make an Italian can't talk is just put him in handcuffs.
Oh. Or a German female.
But here's the thing: is if you're speaking, you want to know that you've been heard. You want to know that you're actually connecting. Mm-hmm. And I think for so many, we think we've communicated because we said something. It's not what you say; it's what they heard. It's not about what you want to say; it's about what they hear and need to hear. So this is my favorite quote when it comes to communication. George Bernard Shaw. He said the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. I've communicated that to you. No, you haven't. Anyway, slow to anger, the next one. Again, it's the same as slow to speak. It doesn't mean don't get angry. Okay, getting angry is normal. It's what you do with it. It's the response that you have. Anger, like all of our emotions, are so important. Emotions are, they're indicators, not dictators. Figure out why. Why are you angry? Okay, what made you angry? Sometimes it's like one little thing that causes this major explosion. wow, you have the opportunity in front of you to really dive into what's going on inside of you. Why are you so angry? What's going on? What's happening? And I think if you were to understand emotions as an indicator and always ask the question, why? Why are you? Why? And then the two of you can actually work together on it. It's not like we're against each other. We're on the same team. So it's like, help me with this. You know, I've used examples in the past where one time I find myself blowing up and saying something really stupid to one of my daughters, and then I stopped and my response was, Helen, help me. Why did I say that? Why did that come out of me? And hold me accountable. And I changed.
Well, the fact is, as a young child, it was the exact sentence you heard over and over and over again, and you hated that when they said it, and you hated that about yourself. And now when you were attacking, you know, a 5-year-old because of what they did, and you said this, blurted out, it really bothered you, and you're like, I don't ever want to say that again. So that was beautiful, the way you did that. So the emotion was revelatory, but it didn't have to be your future. And so again, Proverbs chapter 15:1 says, a gentle answer will calm a person's anger, but an unkind answer will cause more anger. I know we all know this, and yet when we so often default to more anger and letting anger be the loudest voice, again, don't deny the anger that's there, but why is it there? And why am I responding in this way? Because no one will ever be won over. And anger will not open the heart. No one wants to be berated, shamed, or judged. So here we are. You attack the problem,
not the person.
Not the person.
So I've used this. I think is a good illustration. Okay, you attack the problem, not the person, because so often we start out as if we're in a fighting ring, and we're both in opposite corners, and the bell rings, and come out swinging, and may the best man win. And
or woman.
Or woman. But the problem is, if you win, you lose. Because that's not the purpose, to win. What we need to do is, before the bell ever rings, identify the issue. Identify the problem. And it's not you or him. Her or him. It is something else. Identify what the problem is. And then when the bell rings, walk around the ring, put your arm around each other, and the two of you, two minds are better than one. Attack the problem. Try to figure out why. Why do you be like that? You know, we're in this thing for each other, not against each other. The journey of life is the journey of change, is the journey of becoming from where we are to who we're becoming. And we get to help each other on that journey. And one of the greatest things you'll ever do is be able to help each other with the problems that we don't see ourselves. We all got blind spots. We all got stuff, okay? And if you just let that stuff, you think you're against each other because that stuff comes out, you'll never help each other. Walk around the ring, put your arm around each other, identify what the stuff is that you're going to deal with. In my case, it was ever since I was a child, I heard that against me. And I would have never identified that if it wasn't for the help that I had of my wife. But what it did was it changed our communication in that area.
What was beautiful about that, though, is that you owned it. You didn't stay a victim in that and feeling you could never change. You said, I don't ever want to do that again. So if I ever say something like that, just challenge me on it, because I want to not do that anymore. And I think that was the power of it, was owning it, not denying it. So we're hurt in relationships and also healed in relationships. Our goal in communication is always going to be to build a bridge. How can I build a bridge towards you? I want heart-to-heart communication, and I know we're just scratching the surface. There's so many things we could talk about. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 3 says, be eager and strive earnestly to guard and to keep the harmony that is produced by the Spirit in the binding power of peace. Not everyone wants peace, but if people want peace, peace is possible. And so when you're doing it, making peace, these are just a few thoughts we wrote down. Number one, always identify the issue and stick to what the issue is. Don't bring up like, I just hate you, or I don't like you, or you always, or you never. Don't do that. What is it that you want that will take a step? Stick to the facts. What is it? And listen to both sides, see both sides of it, and then make a plan. I think so often we come to a resolution of, okay, I feel peace, we've kind of forgiven, but what is the plan to move forward? I think you need a plan so that you don't keep getting stuck in the ditch over and over again.
Let's go to a few questions.
Okay, thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Sorry we took so long. It's me, it's my fault.
No, it's not.
I have so much built up inside of me. But some great questions. How do I get my husband or my child, etc., all, who just fill in the blank, to open up and talk with me? I think you should answer that because you've done a good job with me.
No, I think actually you should answer it because I don't think I did a good job, but you were someone who would not open up.
Yeah, because it never turned out good. In my past, as soon as I opened up, it's like, it just wasn't something I looked forward to. So how did she get me to talk? Well,
Or anyone for that. I'm not the only person you didn't talk to.
but how did she get me to open up and talk? And I think the key was she just kind of primed the pump. She got me talking to something that I felt safe talking about. Like back in the days in university, she would read my dental textbooks so that she could ask me stuff about dentistry because I felt safe there. I felt like I could actually talk about dentistry and I wouldn't lose. The thing about it, if you're asking me to enter the ring in a fight that I know I'm going to lose, I'm not entering. Okay? If I know I'm going to lose, I'm not going to open my mouth. Hello? Everyone's like that. I think is like that. So she would actually, and then, watching tennis, she would learn the tennis people that watch.
I was desperate, people.
She could prime the pump, get me talking. And once she got me talking about something, then slowly just sort of turned the ship until it was in the right direction. But I thought that was really brilliant, and that worked with me.
Yeah, that helps. Don't just come. I think sometimes have a conversation before the conversation. If you just come in, this is the issue. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to resolve it, but when you do, make it easy and comfortable. Like the question is, how easy am I to talk to? I was not easy. I was going to fix you. I was going to change you. He did not want to be fixed or changed. He wanted to be understood. And so it started with on a place where you felt safe. Secondly, how can I navigate growing in relationship with my girlfriend's parents when they do not approve of my faith?
That's not an easy answer. It's not. I think what you need to do is, for every single one of us, the finger needs to be pointed back at ourselves. And so the question really is, how should I behave? What should I be like? What words should what actions should I do? And it doesn't matter if it's your girlfriend's parents or if it's your neighbors or if it's your parents. You should act like a Christian. You should be like Jesus with feet and hands. And your life should actually make a difference. Now, what they do with what they see is up to them. You can't change anybody. But you can be the example that God wants us to be. And I use 1 Peter chapter 3. Now, this is talking about husbands and wives, but I think it is a principle that applies in every single area. In terms of husband and wives, Peter says this: wives, in the same way, be submissive to your husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without talk by the behavior of the wives. So in other words, it's like St. Francis said, I don't know how many centuries ago, he said, preach the gospel in everything you do, and if you need be, use words. What does he mean? Live like Jesus. Be an example. You can win people over, and trying to berate them and getting them to change is never going to work. Actually, it's going to you're going to have the opposite. Walls are going to go up, and they're going to go the other way. But if you'll just love them and act like Jesus toward them, you be that example.
That's a tough one, but do it with grace. Don't get hurt. because they don't see things your way. Just try to understand and keep the communication
So the
flowing.
last one we're going to attack is how to balance responsibilities and roles in a relationship.
This is such an interesting question. How do you balance your roles and responsibilities? And I think if it's at the job, they would be much more defined. Sometimes households, like children and that, roles and responsibilities, how parents delegate it. And then sometimes this is very true in a marital relationship as well. But if you have like a roommate, you have to decide what the roles and responsibilities, what the expectations are. And I grew up in a household which was very much girl jobs and boy jobs. There was two girls and two boys in my family. And in just the household I grew up in, the girls did the inside work, cooking, cleaning, baking, all of those things. And the boys were outside fixing cars, doing the yard work, and that's just what I understood. John was raised in a family with 11 children in the family. Everybody did everything because it was necessary to run the household. So you were pretty good at ironing clothes, better than I was, and you were very good, but you were so happy to not have to do those things because I thought I had to do all the ironing. However, long story short, is negotiate or sit down and have a conversation. I am not a fan of this is this is a person's role, but I am and this is male or female or just what works. If sometimes like if you're chefy, if you're the guy in the house that's a great cook, God bless you. Feel free to cook. If you're good at making coffees, God bless you. Make me all the coffees in the world. We should clean up a little better after yourself, but because. But this is the fact. I brought that up for this reason. He is not as clean as I am. He is messier. He has a much higher tolerance. However, if I want it cleaner than Helen, clean it up. Stop complaining about it and just do it. Because I think that there is a place for respect and honor rather than just complain about whatever. And so what works for you? What works?
Does everybody
and then do that.
in the room feel me now? Because I really do need your prayers.
This is what I think so often after I see the coffee bar, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I just cleaned this, and I think, Helen, shush. He just made you most divine cup of coffee. Enjoy that and clean it up.
And I pray that the Holy Spirit would tell her those exact words. Let's close in prayer.
Thanks for listening to this week's message. If something stood out to you, if you'd like to submit a prayer request, or if you'd like to learn more about how you can get connected, email relate@relatechurch.ca. If you'd like to partner with us and our community initiatives, please visit relatechurch.ca/give. It's been an honor to spend this time with you. Catch you next week.